So tell me, have you graduated yet?
No, I will be graduating this May.
Okay, that's great. What's your degree?
My degree will be a BA in religious studies with a minor in psychology.
Oh, great. A BA in religious studies with
A minor in psychology.
minor in psychology.
And I was fortunate enough to work as a McNair Scholar. I am a McNair Scholar at Georgia State, but unfortunately the program doesn't exist anymore there, where I got to do research that actually combines both fields.
Right. Tell me, what will you do with your degree when you graduate? What are your plans?
I'm not really sure at this point. I think I had mentioned to Shelley at one point that I was interested in doing advocacy for higher education, specifically for underserved populations that are interested in going to school. Because while I was in the McNair program, I had the opportunity to mentor some Upward Bound students for a year. And they kind of inspired me, and I find myself in situations where I'm always talking to other parents about their children's higher education, giving them advice, how to work the system, the whole 9 yards,
Right.
that kind of thing. I'm also thinking about pursuing a terminal master's degree at West Georgia. I haven't really done anything because I didn't really think I would be at this point. Because Shelley had asked me that same question when I first came back, and I said, I honestly don't know because I didn't know I was going to be at this point. I had given up.
Right.
So when they created this program, I was really excited about it, and I started thinking about that again. But like I said, I stumbled last year, and again, I didn't think I was going to be here today, but here I am again. So those are the two things that I'm interested in. But Shelley also pointed out to me that the program is also starting to reach out to other services within the college to, say, for instance, the Career Services Department, where they are in contact with companies that are looking for more mature workers and people that have work experience. Because at 51, I guess I should probably find a big boy job.
Right.
But I've always been interested in higher education. In fact, before I left Georgia State back in 11, I was actually on track to pursue a PhD. And I'm not sure that I have the energy for that at this point, but who knows?
Right. Yeah, can we get into that? What happened there?
Well, actually, I was still a McNair Scholar then. They still had the program. So the program actually helps first-generation low-income and or ethnic minorities attain a PhD. So everything we did in that program worked towards that end.
Right.
And I found myself with the research that I was doing really interested in evolutionary psychology, so I was heading in that direction. I still may. Anything's possible, but it's a lot of work.
Yes.
So in my last semester, I found myself in a situation where I was panicking about my living situation, about I had food insecurity. It was one thing after another just piling up, and I couldn't make school and work happen.
Right.
So I was administratively withdrawn from my Spanish class because I missed too much time.
Right.
And back then it was only 2 classes and you were gone.
Right.
It's a little bit different now, but and once we got things settled, what I owed Georgia State had gone to collection agency, and they added a 33% fee on top of that, and it became impossible for me to try to take care of that, because I reached out to some folks in the Student Services Department, and they mentioned that the Office of Retention had money, but because I owed Georgia State money, I couldn't get that money. So I did try to get back, but the resources weren't there like they are now.
Right.
So one day when I was working at Public Zone at Lenox, the dean came through the line, and I didn't know she was a dean. She was wearing a shirt that said Georgia State College of Arts and Sciences. I was like, hey, I went to that school. And she's like, did you graduate? And I said, no. And I kind of gave her a super brief story.
Right.
And then she ran with that. Like the next day, I sent her an email, saying thank you for listening to my story. She goes, "Oh,
Right.
I've already got somebody on that." And Shelly called me later on that day, and that just
That's
started
so
the
great.
whole.
I've heard the story from her side before.
Yeah, it
How
was.
random is that?
It really was. I mean, I was dumbfounded by the end of the conversation, and I didn't know what to do with myself. Then the next morning, when things started falling into place, I was like,
Right.
"Wow, this is really going to happen."
Right.
But it wasn't without its challenges, and so because I'm the first student to go through that process,
Right.
it's a learning experience for everybody involved in
Yes.
the process. But overall, I think it's a really it's amazing. I'm
Right.
glad it's there.
Can you tell me if you remember? Can you tell me your what you told Sarah? Just you're in that the dean in that.
Oh, in the
She
line.
said, "What happened? You didn't? Did you graduate? And what did you say?"
Well, I told her that I was worried about. Well, previous to that last semester, I was fortunate enough to have roommates that let me live there relatively inexpensive. So all I had to do was buy food. And when I went back to Georgia State in 2006, I went back with academic renewal, and I worked my ass off from 2006 up to 2011 to bring my GPA from a 1.82 to a 3.57. I was running for honor grad at that point.
Right.
And then because of my circumstances changed, then I had to worry about food, so I had to get in a place to live because my
Right.
roommate moved to a different state.
Right.
I got a job, but the job, it was really weird. I took it, it was a conditional position. They wanted me as a supervisor until the store manager was hired. Oddly enough, that person was hired the same day, so we went through training at the same time.
Right.
And they put me back down into a sales position, which I kept because I needed to work. But they were giving me, they weren't giving me enough hours.
Right.
And I basically told them, look, if you can't give me enough to get me here on MARTA, I will not be here after Friday.
Yeah, sure.
So, long story short, that turned into a management position really quick, like co-running the store. And of course, that took time away from school.
Right.
And I started missing class because I started working 40, 45, 50, 55 hours a week, and then the store manager left, and I ended up running the store by myself.
Right.
And then by that point, Georgia State had administratively withdrawn me,
Right.
and they wanted their money back for that semester. So that snowballed into something with the collection agencies,
Right.
and I just gave up on it.
Right.
So, and then, when I met Sarah, I was like, wow. She goes, well, something's not right there. You should have graduated. And I said, well, we tried. They just, I guess they just didn't have the same resources that they do now.
Right.
And luckily for me, I have somebody on my side who was a whole team of people. I don't know everybody behind
Yeah.
the scenes, but specifically her and Shelly.
Yeah.
Working to get this program, especially Sarah, going to the foundation members and getting the money to get this thing going.
Right.
And the other ancillary people that came into the program to help.
Yeah.
And then things just went from there. So they scholarshiped me through the first 2 semesters, and then I started having issues with depression. And I found myself literally doing nothing and not caring. It was a really bad situation. I told them about it later. But I did manage to make it through my Spanish class, which was worth 6 hours.
Right.
And that boosted my GPA. They gave me 2 semesters to finish my math class, which I didn't do because I was still dealing with that issue.
Right.
And then I didn't think I was going to come back because, they scholarshiped me for 2 semesters. I had 2 semesters to finish that incomplete, and I didn't.
Right.
So a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine that I've known for a long time, helped me out, and so I'm back again this semester to finish for
Right.
good. I've worked through the depression,
Right.
taking medication, going to therapy, that whole 9 yards. And
Right.
I've gotten everything lined up so I can take care of this and finally graduate.
That's fantastic.
And I wouldn't have been able to do it unless they had built that program.
Right.
And I'm excited for the other students that are being pulled into the program as well, because I'm sure some of them had different plans too. But like Sarah had mentioned, life gets in the way. and for some people, they just give up.
Right. Why do you think you didn't give up?
Because it was always something that I wanted to do. I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
I am as well. Well, my brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had, folks like in my extended family go, but nobody in my immediate family.
Right.
My parents didn't go.
Right.
My father was a janitor at Alcoa for 35 years. My mother was a housewife. They got divorced when I was 12 and never spoke a word about college. And oddly enough, this journey started right out of high school for me back in 1988.
Right.
Before I went into the service, once I graduated, I actually applied to a local school there, got accepted, got the financing,
Right.
but I couldn't go because I didn't have the transportation to get there.
Right.
So fast forward to 93, I moved down here, and I was accepted to I want to say it was Gwinnett.
Right.
I don't even remember because I ended up not going because I had to work. And that's always been the case. So when I went to Georgia State the first time back in the winter quarter, back when they had quarters of 98,
Right.
I went for a couple of quarters and I flunked out because I mentally I was not prepared.
Right.
And like I said, I came back in 2006 and knocked it out of the park. Became a McNair Scholar. I'm published in an encyclopedia. I got to mentor some wonderful kids in the Upward Bound program, and I got
Right.
to study abroad. So I got to,
Wow.
the odd path that I took through this journey has taken me places that I never thought I probably would have gone,
Right.
and may not have gone had it gone just through the 4 years.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I don't have any regrets about it. Everybody's path is different.
Right.
And I'm thankful for the experience that I had, no matter which way it turns out.
So you must be very excited and proud now.
Yeah, I am. And then, last year when I posted what Sarah, the newsletter that Sarah posted, people were like, well, see what's happened here? Your experience is helping other people. So
That's great.
in a way, I've already been successful.
Right.
And I am proud of that. I feel bad that I've let them down and I didn't graduate when I should have in that one semester. But like I said, I had to come to terms with my own mental health issues. And I'm glad I did.
That's right. Let me go back and I just have a few more details I want to make sure I have right. How close did you get to finishing before this? Before you saw Sarah, how close?
I was in my last semester.
You're in the
I
last semester,
literally
okay.
was taking the same 2 classes that I am now.
Okay, gotcha.
I was
Awesome.
taking my foreign language requirement
Right.
and my math
2
requirement.
classes.
Yep.
4 languages. Gotcha.
9 hours.
It was just 9 hours that
Yeah.
separated you. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And it was funny because I kept putting those classes off, and
Right.
I attempted actually them a couple of times, but I was like, oh, I can do this later.
Right. Right.
And so if I was ever to give anybody advice, I would say, don't do that.
Right. Tell me if I have this generally right, if I were to summarize what got in your way of finishing those last 2 classes. It was a combination of stress at work and life.
Yeah, I mean, it really was because, like I said, prior to that last semester, I didn't have to work. And I literally spent every waking hour devoted to school. Because when I was I didn't know this, but I was always a C student until I got to college.
Right.
And once I got on track, I became a straight A student. I was on the president's list twice and
Right.
the dean's list several times. And I'd never done that before in
Right.
high school. So, and like I said, even in the McNair program, I was very successful as
Right.
well. I got to present my research at 4 different schools,
Right.
an international conference in Canada
Right.
at the University of Quebec in Montreal. I really got to do things that I probably wouldn't have done
Right.
had I just gone straight through.
So you had the scholarship, and that's why you didn't have to work.
No, I didn't have scholarships at all. My roommates allowed me to live relatively expensive. I was living off my disbursements.
Okay.
And people were like, how are you doing that? I'm like,
Right.
I'm doing it.
Right.
Because this is what I want to do.
Right.
That determination and persistence.
Right.
It's something that I've always wanted to do, and once I found out that I was good at it, and it seemed like I had a future in it,
Right.
that's something that I kept pursuing.
In that interim, when you're just 2 classes away, you must have been kind of, were you obsessed about it? Were you tortured by it?
Oh,
Or you said you just kind of give up?
well, I mean, once they withdrew me from the class,
Yeah.
it really knocked the wind out of my sails,
Yeah.
and I became very resentful of my job, and in fact, I walked out a week before Christmas. Because in my mind, I lost focus on the goal. And when I went back and met with some McNair students later, I told them one of my biggest mistakes was taking my eye off the prize and not doing whatever it took to finish. Because there's, in my mind, there should have been no reason why I shouldn't have finished.
Right.
Other than the life situations. But, I take that experience and I use it against myself for the longest time. Like I said, I became very resentful of my job and I left. And unbeknownst to myself, I had fallen into a depression because a lot of my identity was tied up in being an academic.
Of course.
And I didn't know what to do with myself.
Right.
And so I just languished for a few years. And there was a glimmer of hope, like I said at the beginning, when they tried to get me back into school.
Right.
And when that didn't work out, I literally just said, I guess, I'm not going back to school ever again. And so after I spoke with her in line that day, I literally broke down at my register in tears because I was
Wow.
I was like so overwhelmed with, oh my God, I might be going back to school.
Right.
And unfortunately, like I said, I realized during that semester, not the first semester, but the second semester when I was supposed to be finishing my math class,
Right.
because it was incomplete, that's when I realized I was suffering from depression. And I said to myself, you're a psych minor. You should have seen the signs. The laying around all day, sleeping all the time. I was not interested at all in anything. And I hid it from everybody for a really long time.
Right.
And then when I had that realization, I was like, wow. And so I spent the rest of that semester trying to come to terms with it. And unfortunately, I didn't finish the math class. So now I'm back. My head is in a different place.
Right.
And I'm super excited about it. So,
Yeah.
in fact, I'm here today, not only for this, but there's a book here I want to get
Right.
that'll give me some basics.
Oh,
Because this math class, there's some knowledge gaps because I've been out of school for
Sure.
so long.
Sure. I have no idea what
I tell the
that would
teachers, it's been over 30 years since I
Yeah.
graduated from high school.
Yeah. That would be tough.
Yeah, it is. So I'm going to have to work at it, but
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind that I will succeed.
That's great. What did you say your job is right now?
Right now I'm an independent contractor for a company called Shipped. I literally shop and deliver groceries.
Oh, yeah. I know
It's
that.
super
Yeah.
easy.
Oh, that's right.
I get to do my own schedule.
Yeah.
And if I work really hard at it, I make a lot of money. But right now I'm just worried about getting through this last semester and then
Yeah.
we'll worry about anything else after that.
I know I asked you this before, but what do you imagine is next? And how do you think things will change when you have your degree? Or do you think
Well, after I get over the emotional rush of it,
yeah, of course.
I don't know. Well, it depends on how things go when I make contact with the Career Services Department. It depends on what kind of companies they have outreach to or connections to, and what those people are looking at. And, I honestly wouldn't mind working at Georgia State in some kind of capacity where I'm actually helping students achieve what they're trying to achieve in school. And like I told Shelley, I said, I have no idea what that looks like because I never really considered it before. On the PhD track, the reason why I was interested in the PhD track was because I wanted to be a professor. I don't know if I just have that kind of energy right now because that's going to require quite a few years.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still interested in doing it, but if I could even if I got to teach, say, like upward bound students or the top of the charts kids, you know, the ones that really want to learn.
Right.
I could see myself doing that. I never really put that much thought into it. And like I said, the other option is going to school to get my terminal master's degree. I'm interested in West Georgia because when I first started reading about them and some of the professors, what they're doing with psychology is a little outside the box.
Right.
I'm not interested in clinical,
Right.
Because I can do that. I like to do that for free.
Normally I would say
Right.
like go and get the books
But
first, because some of these
the way they're combining psychology, say like with religion or with other fields. So I don't know. It's kind of up in the air at this point.
What do you think having the degree will add to your value as a prospective job applicant, I guess?
Well,
Or just more generally, what I'm trying to get that quote of like, what does it mean to you? How does it feel?
for me, it's a sense of accomplishment because of my background. My parents always saw me as somebody that never really finished anything. So for me, that would be part of it.
Yes.
The other thing would be just overcoming what I have overcome over the 30 years that I've been trying to get this degree.
Right. And here you are, and you're gonna do it.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, they don't have the McNair program there anymore, and so I won't be able to wear the rope, which I should have been wearing when I was supposed to graduate in 2011. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Can I ask, are your parents still around, and do they know?
My
this?
mother was killed in a murder-suicide 26 years ago yesterday.
Oh my Lord. So sorry.
And my father is still in New York, and both of my sisters are up there as well. It's only me and two of my mother's sisters that live down here in Georgia. Everybody else is,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, after the military, I made the mistake of actually going home because it's a small town. It's Messina, New York.
Okay.
Small industrial town. Its heyday was back in the 50s, and since then it's been on the decline.
I grew up in a town like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my aunt suggested that I come down here, and it was like the best thing I ever did. I like being in the city. I like the opportunities that are here.
Yeah. There's so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. We definitely have the right person to represent this program. That's such a great story with you meeting Sarah like that.
Yeah, it was so serendipitous. I was I was so floored by the whole experience. And then, you know, I struggled in the first couple of weeks there because I still had to work.
Right.
And I wasn't sure how I was going to make it work. And I was so worried about letting them down. I was literally walking away at one point. So we had a meeting at the school, and you know, she kind of gave me a little bit of a background of where she came from, and that kind of inspired me a little bit.
Sarah?
I was like, yeah, I mean...
What did she say that resonated with you?
Well, I mean, I forget exactly where she comes from, but she just thought that somebody with my experience deserved a second shot. And I was thankful that she knew how to pull resources together to make that happen. And I'm sure anybody else they pull into the program will be grateful as well, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I think we have...